This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, great. So again, to just brief on what we were doing, we have just created the CI pipelines the other day, meaning I have a repository which is called, let's say, something like first repository or something like this. After that, I went ahead and I added multiple branches inside it, like develop branch, like main branch, and etc. And we have protected the branches using the policies. We had multiple policies out here and we protected the branches using this particular policies that is implemented on top of them. And then later we went ahead and we designed something called as CIC, I mean something known as a CI pipeline, wherein when I go inside the pipeline, I just edited this and I enabled something called as a trigger. Now for this pipeline, I made sure that we go ahead and enable something called as a continuous integration trigger. Whenever a developer or whenever, let's say, a QA or a developer goes ahead and updates this particular branch called as a develop branch, so it was going ahead and triggering a pipeline readily. So it was going ahead and directly triggering the pipeline as such. And at the end of the pipeline, I was able to get something known as an artifact. So I was able to get something called as the artifact out here. And I did the same thing for a .NET Full Framework pipeline as well. So even for a .NET Full Framework pipeline, I am able to now get something known as the artifact out here in the form of a .zip file. So good until here, guys. And this is the branching policy that we went ahead and integrated, or this is the branching policy that we went ahead and enabled. So all these are the branching policies that we went ahead and enabled out here so as to make sure that we can protect the entire CSI. I mean, we can protect the entire repository so that no one or no developer can come and just go ahead and commit any faulty code inside it. But there is one issue still with the entire architecture that I'm doing right now. So let me open up my diagram. Just give me one quick second out here. There is still one issue that I am facing right now, and the issue is here. Now, both the .NET Core application and the .NET Full Framework application, both of the pipelines have been enabled with a continuous integration. Now, if I look at both of my pipelines, I have continuous integration enabled on both of them. So even on this pipeline, I will go ahead and enable continuous integration if not existing. So I'll enable this continuous integration so that even this pipeline can automatically trigger whenever there is a commit onto the develop branch, and it can produce the artifact out here. So I'll just go ahead and save this out and I'll say enabled continuous integration trigger. Okay, so enable continuous integration trigger, great. So now what will happen is that let's understand this in a bit systematic way. There is a developer who's working, there are multiple developers who are working on their local machines. Let's imagine that there is one developer who's working here, and this one developer is, let's say, working, or this first developer is, let's say, working on the .NET Core pipeline, or he's working on the .NET Core application. He's a developer who's assigned to work on the .NET Core application out here. And this second developer, which is developer 2, is working on the .NET Full Framework. He's working on this particular project, and both of these projects are there in the same repository. both of these projects are there in the same repository called as first repo, and both of these projects are sitting in the develop branch of the first repository. Now, let's say in my first case, the developer one from his local machine is using a feature branch to go ahead and commit onto the develop branch of the repository. And this developer is only concerned about the .NET Core. And this developer is only concerned about the .NET Full Framework. Because there are two projects inside your particular repository right now. And even this developer goes ahead and commits to .NET Full Framework and merges his particular PR into the repository. So he has a PR, he's merging this particular PR into the repository right now. Now, so the question for you all is that if the first developer is going ahead making some changes to the .NET Core application, let's say the first developer goes here, makes some changes to the .NET Core application using his own feature branch. So he's using his own feature branch, is committing and is doing a lot of things. Which pipeline out of these two do you think will trigger? Will it be the .NET Core? Will it be the .NET Full Framework? So I need some input here, guys. So I'm just waiting for some input now. Did you all firstly understand the question? And if yes, then can anyone please go ahead and answer this out? Guys, I need some inputs.
Whichever it is committed first, that will be trigger, Kiran here.
Whichever will be committed first, that will get triggered out here. Okay. So let's imagine both of them are working at the same time. Both of them are working at the same time, and both of them are committing to this particular branch at the same time. So both of them are committing to this particular branch at the very same time out here. So which pipeline would or should trigger right now? Should it be the .NET Core application or should it be the .NET Full Framework application out here?
So first of all, here when they are triggering, right, they will they will sync the particular branch. Is there any changes or not? So in that case, first suppose I'm a imagine I'm a developer. So when I'm triggering, when I'm committing the code, first usually I will check it is there any changes in the existing branch. So if it is not there in the sense, so my commit will be work on it first. First it will be triggered.
Okay, but again, which one do you think will get triggered then? I mean, I am in the first case, I am the developer A who's working on a core application. I made a lot of changes and I'm committing to this branch into this particular folder called .NET Core Application Demo, into this particular branch out here.
Okay.
So
So
which
here
pipeline?
it will be like at a time it depends on the agent also. When we are going with Microsoft hosted agent, so one completed triggering, then only it will be going for second one. When we are going for self hosted, so if we have two jobs, we can run two jobs at a time.
But why should I run two jobs at a time? I am only interested in one pipeline right now, which is .NET Core. Don't you think that if I basically trigger or if I basically commit to the develop branch and if I'm only interested in if I'm a developer only just interested in .NET Core application, do you think I'll be interested in this getting triggered at all?
No, no. Before committing, we will get, I mean, like, we will get some notification, right?
I'm sorry, before committing?
We are following the branching policies, so
That's fine. Branching policies are everything is there. So that's the reason I am now taking a feature branch right now. So I'm using a feature branch in order to make the commit. I have a reviewer, I have a work item, I have everything that I need. And I went ahead and now basically committed my changes. And not only me, but the other developer is also working on the same thing. So the I am as a developer, I am working on the .NET Core application, and someone
Mhm.
else as a developer is also going ahead and working on something known as a .NET Full Framework application. And both of us are right now going ahead and committing to, let's say, this particular branch out here. Anyone else, guys, apart from Naveen? Can anyone else try to answer this out? Firstly, do you understand the question that I'm asking? Secondly, which pipeline do you think will get triggered in this particular case? Guys, again, I need some inputs out here from your end. These are .NET, maybe .NET Core application. Okay, it has the own dependency, so maybe .NET Core application. Okay, so maybe .NET Core. So anyone else, any different answers here? I have two pipelines, and guys, I need some inputs from your end. Again and again, I'm asking. I need some inputs. Reason being, this is all interview-based questions, scenario-based questions. This is something that you'll be tackling as and when you kind of work. I have a .NET Core pipeline, a build pipeline called .NET Core with a continuous integration trigger. I have a .NET full framework with a continuous integration trigger as well. I have both the pipelines which are configured for a continuous integration trigger on the develop branch, meaning whenever the develop branch is committed, there should be a continuous integration that's triggered on both of these pipelines. So now I am a developer who is working on the core application, and I am now going ahead and committing my code on the develop branch. So which of these pipelines do you feel that should get triggered or that will get triggered? So one answer was it was .NET Core pipeline, which is this one. Any different answers here, guys? Guys, I'm asking you all any inputs. Guys, firstly, do you all understand this question that I'm asking?
Yes, Kiran, it is clear. It will be triggered .NET Core only.
Okay. With .NET Core only. Anyone else who thinks that it will trigger full framework, or anyone thinks the otherwise? Guys, anyone else? I'm only hearing answers from one particular person. I need some inputs from someone else. Can anyone please go ahead unmute themselves and kind of tell me if you have understood this question, and if yes, then what do you think is the answer here?
Kiran, .NET Core will be triggered, I think.
.NET Core will be triggered. So let's see what's happening here. So let's do here. Let's go here, and I am now coming as a developer. I am now using a feature branch because develop branch I cannot just go ahead and commit onto the develop branch. So I'll say this is feature 100, and I'll say okay, fine, change the code for .NET Core. This is the work item that I am on, and I'll say create. And what I'm going to do right now is I'll go into, let's say, the pages, into, let's say, a page called index.html, and inside this page I'll just go ahead and say this is my .NET, or this is the .NET Core application version 2, and I'm just doing a commit, and I'll say change the version of .NET Core to 2, and I'll use this particular work item to commit my change, and I'll say commit it out. As in when I commit my change out, the next thing that I'm going to do right now is I'll go ahead and I'll create a pull request from my feature 100 branch into the develop branch. Okay, so it says that you already have an active pull request. So let me go into my pull request out here and let me see. Is this the one which is the active pull request? Yes, this is the one which is the active pull request. And let's see what all the files are there. Okay, this is version 2. Great. So there is already a pull request with this particular number. And I'll just go ahead and link this work item. And I also need the contributor to come here and approve this out. And I need to basically now log in like a contributor and approve this one out right now. So let me give me one quick second. I'll go ahead and do that right now. Let me say this portal.azure.com and log in like a contributor. So I am coming in as someone who's reviewing this particular code. I'm logging in just to make sure to that I go ahead and approve this out. Okay, so it's just asking me to verify this one out, and let me do that also very quickly. So once I verify this out, I can go ahead log into the account and I can go ahead and approve the PR so that the merge can be done. So let me go ahead and refresh the screen, and I have the Microsoft security code coming in. And once I verify this out, I'll just go ahead and log into this account. Okay, what am I using? And once in, I'll try to go ahead into this particular project, and I already have a pull request that is waiting for me. I'll now go ahead and approve this out. I'll say approve, and now this pull request is now approved, and there is a feature 100 branch into the development. In this case, I went ahead and just updated the .NET Core application. Now let me come back into the pipelines and see which pipeline got triggered out of those both. Which pipeline do you think got triggered, guys? Anyone? Which
Both have
pipeline?
triggered.
Both
Both
triggers.
got triggered.
Both are getting
Both.
triggered. So whenever a developer, either being, let's say, a developer working on a full framework or a developer working on a core application, whenever one of them is going ahead and triggering this particular, or whenever one of them is going ahead and updating the branch, both of these pipelines are getting triggered. Both of them are getting triggered parallelly. So if you look into this particular pipeline out here,
Kiran, I have a doubt.
yeah, please go ahead.
I think both of them are getting triggered, but the changes will be made in .NET Core application only. I mean .NET Core
Yes,
pipeline.
agreed. Both of them are getting triggered, but the changes will only basically get reflected in the artifact of the .NET Core application and not the .NET Shell framework. It's the same the other way around also, meaning if I go here and let me refresh this out, and it still says it's like waiting for the agent and etc. Let me look at this pipeline. It says core build, it's like queued and etc. I'm just waiting for the agent to come in because I think there's another agent which is running parallelly. So you have the .NET Core pipeline which is like still running here. We just picked up the agent job and it's like kind of building out. So it's like doing a checkout and etc. So this is going to take some time out here. But yes, you are right in telling that if the changes are done to the .NET Core application and both of the pipelines are getting triggered simultaneously, meaning in a parallel way, only the .NET Core changes is something that I am really interested into. Only the .NET Core changes is something that I'm really very interested into. And if I am a developer who's working on the .NET framework, I go ahead and again create a feature branch here. I'll say feature framework. And I am now working only on the framework application right now. And I'll just take, let's say, work item to kind of basically make sure that I'm sticking to the policy. So I am a developer right now. I'm the second developer right now who's coming here with a different branch, and I'm working on the full framework. And I want to commit the full framework into the developer branch out here. So I'm coming here as the second developer, going inside it, and I'll just go ahead and basically go into a file called home, into something called index.vbhtml, and I'll just say, okay, fine, this is like the entire thing. Basically, it's getting me out. So in here, I'll just go ahead and I'll just change this application and tell that, okay, fine, this is the first commit. Or let me do something very simple. Instead of ASP.NET, I'll just say this is version 1 of ASP.NET, and I'll just do a commit, and I'll just basically integrate my work item. I'll just say commit out here, and I'll create a pull request into the developer branch, and I will say create this out. And once this pull request is in, I'll just go ahead set it to autocomplete. I'll say delete the feature branch after this is getting merged, and I'll do a autocomplete out here. And once the contributor now comes in, looks into the pull request, he'll be able to see one pull request out here. And as a contributor, I'm going in and approving this out. So once I approve this out, this got merged again. Now, since this got merged, as a developer, I'm now very interested to see which build triggered, how is my build getting triggered. And once I refresh my screen, both of them got triggered once again. So both of them got triggered once again just now. But yes, the changes will only be reflected in this particular pipeline called .NET Framework pipeline. But don't you think that this is not right? Meaning, whenever my intention out here is that whenever the developer who is basically working on a folder called .NET Core is making his changes and commenting it into the repository, into the develop branch of the repository, it should only result in a trigger of .NET Core and not the full framework. It's the other way around for this developer too. If a developer who's working on a full framework is working on a folder called a full framework, committing it out into the repository, only the full framework pipeline should get triggered and not the core. Right? This is what should ideally happen. But why are both the pipelines getting triggered, guys? Can anyone think about it? And can anyone give me some input on why do you think both the pipelines are getting triggered when any of the developers is going ahead and working on this particular code?
Is this because they both are in the same develop branch?
They both are in the same develop branch, okay. Both are in the same develop branch, correct. But ideally it shouldn't go ahead and trigger, let's say, both the pipelines at the same time whenever the develop branch is getting updated. So Any other inputs out here, guys? Yes, that is one probable answer, is that yes, both are in the same develop branch. Both sorry, both the codes that I'm looking at here, both of them are in the develop branch only. And whenever someone is updating any of the folder out here, then both the pipelines are getting parallelly triggered, which is not really ideal for the kind of work that we're actually doing out here.
Kiran, I have a different question. Actually,
Hmm.
why are we placing the two projects in the same develop branch if they are two different? I mean, are they two different? I mean, .NET Core and .NET. Why we are not creating two repositories? I mean,
That's right. I mean, you could tell that. You mean we need two different repositories for each and every kind of a pipeline. True. That is how it will ideally be. Meaning there will be one repository for .NET Core, the other repository for .NET Full Framework, and you
okay,
have less headache. But when I set it up, I did not really think so far. Like when I set it up,
okay,
when I basically was kind of doing my repositories, my organization did not think so far, and they went ahead and they included everything in the same kind of the repository. And now they come to you and they look to you as a DevOps engineer to help them resolve this issue. That whenever you have, let's say, one particular developer is working on one particular folder, the entire the all the pipelines are getting triggered. This is what is the issue that I'm kind of facing out. So
okay.
there is one thing out here. So there's one thing out here is that irrespective of which pipeline it is, whether being a .NET Core or whether being a .NET Full Framework pipeline, either whether being it's a .NET Core or .NET Full Framework pipeline out here. So let me go back here and also talk about .NET Full Framework pipeline. Whether it being a .NET Core or whether it being a .NET Full Framework, both of them are configured for a continuous integration trigger whenever the develop branch is updated. This is the trigger out here. It says whenever the develop branch is updated, go ahead and make sure the pipeline is getting triggered. Even the full framework pipeline is configured in the same way. What if there is a way that I can tell my pipeline that, you know what, yes, whenever the develop branch is updated, I want you to trigger, but only if this folder of the develop branch is updated, then trigger a .NET Core pipeline. And only if this folder of the develop branch is updated, then trigger a full framework pipeline. Because this is the folder, the first folder is containing all the .NET Core application out there. The second folder out here is containing all the code for the .NET Full Framework. So if the first folder is updated, then go ahead and update the core, or then go ahead and trigger the core. And if the second pipeline is updated, then go ahead and basically trigger the full framework out here. So this is the idea, or this is, let's say, the goal what I want to achieve right now. So is there a way? Certainly yes. How can you achieve it? Let's go into that. And this is the folder I'm actually talking about, which is something like /.NET Core application. And this is the core build pipeline. And this is a trigger for the core build pipeline. So this is the core build pipeline, and this is the trigger for the core build pipeline. In here, there are something called as path filter, wherein I can say include a specific path, and in my case, please make sure to include only this particular path, meaning if someone is coming here and triggering, or if someone is coming here and making a change to the .NET Core application only, please go ahead and trigger this pipeline. This is something that I'm telling explicitly. Secondly, I'm saying exclude. I have include, I have also exclude option, and I want to exclude the .NET Full Framework application in the core pipeline. I am including a folder called .NET Core, and I'm excluding something known as .NET Full Framework. And I'll say save. and I'll say added path filters. So I'm adding path filters out here, and I'll do the same thing for .NET full framework pipeline also, wherein I will include the .NET framework application, and I will exclude the .NET core application. This is the folder that I'm now excluding it out on the .NET full framework pipeline. And I'm now saying save, and I'll say added path filters. So I added path filters for both of my pipelines to make sure that my goal is achieved. So what I'm going to do right now is that I'll come back again as a developer, and I'll say feature core test. I want to now basically go ahead and change the core application right now. So I'll come here into the root folders, or I'll come here into, sorry, the pages. I'll go into something known as index.cshtml, and let's say this is version 3. Just doing a very small commit, commenting my code out here, and then creating a pull request into the develop branch. So I'm creating a pull request into the develop branch, and once a pull request is created, I'll just go ahead and set it to autocomplete, delete the branch after it gets merged, and I'll come as a contributor right now. You go into the pull requests, and this is updated, so I'll just go ahead and approve it out, and this is approved, and this should have gone ahead and triggered a pipeline, and it's only triggering the .NET core build pipeline right now. The reason being, I included a path filter in this point. So what's happening right now is that if a developer is coming here into the core application, and if he's going into the develop branch and updating the branch, only the core pipeline is getting triggered. And in the other way around, the same thing is going to happen for a full framework as well. So I'm now a developer who's updating my full framework. So let me go here into the develop branch, and let me say create a new branch out here called feature. Let's say full framework. I'll say test. And in here, I will go ahead and I will say, let's say views, and I'll say index dot home, and sorry, home, and then index dot vbhtml, and I'll say this is version 2 of the ASP.NET application. Save this out, comment it out, and now I'll go ahead and raise a pull request into the develop branch, and I'll say okay, fine, go ahead and create this out, set it to autocomplete. Again, the contributor will have to come approve my PR. Say approve the PR. Once approved, once the merge is done, if I look at my pipelines, now only the .NET full framework pipeline is getting triggered. So I am now able to establish a successful one-to-one relationship, so that A, both the pipelines won't get triggered at the same time. Meaning both the pipelines should not get triggered. Only let's say the folder which got updated, whether it's a .NET Core or .NET Full Framework, should result in either one of the pipelines. This is the first advantage I'm getting with this. B is that I am using a hosted agent right now, and hosted agents always and always come with a timeline. Meaning this is the hosted agent that I'm using, And hosted agents are limited in nature. They have limited minutes basically they come up with. In my case, I am getting somewhere around 1800 minutes per a month as a free hosted agent for me. So I need to make sure that I preserve this as much as possible. If this was a self-hosted agent, I wouldn't have been much more worried about this. But this is a hosted agent, and my organization doesn't have the budget to go ahead and buy a self-hosted agent. They're planning to use Azure hosted machines out here, and I'm getting somewhere around 1800 minutes per a month, and I've already consumed I've already consumed somewhere around 137 minutes. I'm the only user. Imagine there are like 10 different users, 10 different developers who are like parallelly working. This number would have been much more higher, provided both my builds are getting triggered at the same time. Now that's not happening. I'm controlling which build should get triggered, how it should get triggered, and etc. Okay, any questions still here, guys? Anyone, any questions still here? Anyone, any questions still here? Any questions, guys? Are you all able to follow this out? Okay, so let's talk about the common issues that you kind of face while creating the pipelines. I will take some questions right now, and we'll also look into what are the interview questions that someone can be asking from these topics that we covered till now. So we have only done till the continuous integration pipeline. I am still left with the two more concepts in the continuous integration pipeline, which is called static code analysis, which is called self-hosted agents. After these two topics, we will be going into the release pipelines. We will be understanding what is release pipeline, what is the strategy that we need to follow for a release pipeline, what is infrastructure as a code, meaning how do you use ARM templates along with something called as Azure DevOps in order to go ahead and create your infrastructure on the fly. So these are the topics that we are going to discuss in the release pipeline. But until now, whatever interviews that you go ahead and give, whichever interview that you go ahead and give, the very common question would be what is the branching, or what are branches? Let me put it in this way: what are branches, and what do you understand by branching and merging strategy? And what is the branching and merging strategy that is followed in your project? This is one of the most asked questions that comes in the interview, on what are branches, what is branching and merging strategy, what is followed in your organization, why do you follow it? Secondly is that how do you track work items? Do you use Jira, do you use Azure boards, and etc., and so on and so forth? What do you mean by continuous integration? What kind of a code stack do you work on? Meaning, did you build something called .NET Core, full framework, Java, PHP, Python? What did you really work on? And what is the strategy that you really follow out here? And what are the common errors that you face on a daily basis? What are the challenges and what are the errors that you face on a daily basis? Secondly, there will be scenario based questions that someone can ask. Scenarios like the one that we are discussing right now is that I have like different developers working on the same branch, multiple pipelines are getting triggered every time. What do you use? What do you make sure, or how do you make sure to use something called, or how do you make sure to limit this using, or what do you understand by something called as path filters or branch filters? What do you understand until this particular point? So what do you know about this and etc. Secondly, is that questions can be like, you know what, I don't want a continuous integration. I have 10 developers who are working in my organization. The working time is from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I'm a bank, all of them are committing their code and etc. And every time someone commits their code, I don't want a continuous integration. But at 5 p.m. in the evening, I just want one build pipeline to trigger, make sure to produce an artifact for all the work that's been done from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Is it possible? Meaning, I'm talking about scheduled build pipelines. Is this possible? Is something, or these are the number of questions that can come up from here. And also, very importantly, what do you understand by variables in Azure DevOps? And how do you declare a variable in Azure DevOps? How do you declare a variable and etc.? What do you do in order to declare a variable? And going forward, one of the most commonly asked question that's now coming right now is that, did you work on YAML based pipelines? What do you know about it? These are the questions that can commonly come from an interview perspective. And there
Kiran,
are
one more we need to add here. What is the difference between variables and group variables?
I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to get your voice. There is a bit of disturbance at your end. Uh,
Uh,
can you please repeat
where,
your question?
difference between variables and group variables?
Difference between, I'm sorry,
Variables and group variables.
it is not. Can you please go on mute? I can answer that. Sorry, yeah. So there is a lot of disturbance at your end. So it is not group variables. It's called variable groups. There are. It's not called. It's again not called variables. There is something called pipeline variables and variable groups. There are two things. Is that the difference between pipeline variables versus variable groups, or also called as libraries in Azure DevOps? We will talk about it in very detailed. We'll understand what are variable groups, what are pipeline variables, and etc. This is a this is a topic that I will explain with the release pipeline because it's best covered there. You'll be able to best understand that over there. So, so I'll be covering this topic when we are doing Azure DevOps release pipelines out there. Does that answer your question, Naveen?
Yes, Kiran.
So all these are the interview questions that we get here, guys. Now, I would like to hear from you all. What are the challenges are you facing while creating the pipelines? What are the challenges that you're facing while doing a git commit, a git clone, or whatever it is? And yes, also git commands is something that's also asked. So git commands like git clone, git fetch, git pull, git push, git I mean, what is the pull request and etc. So these are the commands that you need to basically go through, or what are the git commands and etc. How do you use it and etc. So commonly asked questions. So now it's open for you all, guys. So what are the challenges that you are facing while creating these pipelines, or while what are the issues that you're facing while creating these pipelines? We can discuss about that. So anyone is anyone facing any challenges out here?
Hi, Kiran. Uh,
Hi.
Creating when we are creating a pipeline, we are it, at the initial point it asks us what is the type of code you want to choose. So
Correct.
yesterday when I'm practicing, I just want to create a pipeline for PHP project, but I didn't find any PHP file type source.
Okay.
I'm, uh,
Mm-hmm.
is this, I mean, do we have to try a different way, or what went wrong for me?
Okay, again, see, there are again different coding strategies, and personally, I haven't worked on PHP. I have worked with
Okay.
Python, I have worked with .NET, and I worked with Java. But personally, I haven't worked with PHP. But provided if you get such challenge out here, because on a regular basis, you will be getting such challenges that what there's a new program, let's say in the organization, I want a pipeline for it, and you don't know how to do it. So the best way to resolve this, the best way to understand the strategy is that you will definitely have access to portal.azure.com, right? You have both portal
Yes.
and also the DevOps. In portal.azure.com, you have something called as DevOps Starter Kit. There is something known as a DevOps Starter Kit out here, which, for example, let's say you ask me now, you're my client, and you're asking me the same question. So I don't know, I haven't worked on PHP. Like I have not worked on PHP, you might not have worked on Java pipelines or etc. So what I'll be doing is that I want to get an idea of how a PHP pipeline really looks like. For which what I'll do is that I'll just go here and I'll say, okay, fine, I need a PHP pipeline. This is where I am right now. And in here, it's saying setting up an Azure DevOps starter pipeline with GitHub, change the settings here. I do not want it on GitHub. I want it with Azure DevOps. So I'm just clicking the setting here and I'm changing it to Azure DevOps. And once I change to Azure DevOps, there is something called as PHP out here. So there are different code stacks that is available. For example, you have .NET, Node, PHP, Java, Python, C Sharp, Go, Ruby, and you can also bring your own code out here. And I want basically a PHP. And there are two different frameworks what Azure DevOps right now offers. It's called a simple PHP and something known as Laravel. And I need a simple PHP application. And I now decide, or I now basically need to decide where my application should run, whether it's a Windows web app, Linux web apps, or whether it's a container and etc. Let's say I want to basically run this application on a Windows web app, and finally I go ahead and create this out. So once you create it, okay, once you create this, you'll need to give the details of your organization and etc. Once you create it, you will have a build pipeline, a release pipeline readily available. I'll also go ahead and create this out in one class. I'm not doing it right now because I haven't covered the release strategy. So it'll become a bit tricky if I go ahead and create it right away. So once you create this out, you will get a build definition, a release definition, an end-to-end pipeline, an end-to-end strategy, and how to achieve this out. Using that particular strategy, you can go ahead and build the PHP applications as well. So this is the approach what we generally follow out here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Any more challenges, guys? Anyone is facing any more challenges here? And the primary reason I'm more focused upon .NET or the flavors of .NET out here is that in most of the organizations where we use Azure DevOps, we primarily build it on .NETs because it's a Microsoft product. And when you're using Azure DevOps, in 99% of the times, you will go ahead and deploy it on an Azure cloud. And when you're using Azure, mostly you will go with a Microsoft product like, let's say, .NET, which is, let's say, one of the most used products out there. So that's the reason I'm heavily focused upon .NET. But that's not stopping you from exploring this particular DevOps starter. You can use different concepts out here. You can basically use Java, you can use Golang and etc. And you can build your own projects there. And I would suggest you all to try this out. This is an excellent starter kit that basically what Azure offers. So you can just go ahead and try it out and see how it works out for you. Any more questions, guys? Anyone? Anything else?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah,
Uh,
please go ahead.
as a contributor, I weren't able to see the projects until I have converted as a administrator. Why?
No, not really. So as a contributor also, you'll be able to go ahead. Just a second. As a contributor also, you'll be go ahead and be able to see the projects. But very importantly, you will have to understand what is the permissions that you have assigned to a contributor. In my case, I have, let's say, something like there are permissions basically that I need to set. So view project level information is something that the contributor can do in my case. The contributor cannot delete the organization. I've not set it. So you'll basically have to allow this thing. And also when I add someone as a contributor at the organization level, when I go ahead and add someone as a contributor, so in my case, I have one particular person who's like, working as a contributor in my organization. This person needs to have an access to the project. Now, for example, I have multiple projects out here, and this person called a contributor doesn't have an access to a project called Terraform in my project. So I need to explicitly give an access, and I need to explicitly tell that he's a contributor out here and then save this out. Only then this particular user will gain access to your project. And if he's still not able to gain this out, you'll have to just see what are the permissions that you have assigned at a project level to someone called as a contributor. In the project settings, you'll have to go into the permissions. You'll have to go into a group called contributors, and you'll have to see what are the permissions that are associated with this particular group. And then this will probably solve your issue out. Any more questions, guys? Okay, guys, then no further questions, and I'm good to close. Before coming to tomorrow's session, please make sure to read about static code analyzers. Please make sure to do that before coming to tomorrow's class. And thank you, guys, and have a great day ahead.